Hello and welcome to the final episode of season 1 of the Atom podcast. My name is Ollie Thompson, I'm your host, and today we are joined by Luming Wang, the CTO of ElectrifAi. How are you doing, Luming?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you, really good. To the listeners listening in, thank you everyone for listening to season 1 so far. I'm really pleased that we're able to wrap it up with someone like Luming, and I'll let him go into some detail in a minute, but this is such an exciting podcast. Luming has had an illustrious career. He's worked at Microsoft, he then went to Amazon, he went back to Microsoft, he then went to Uber, he then went to Millennium, and he's now the CTO of the oldest AI machine learning company in the US. Is that the stat? That is, isn't it?
Yes. We were founded in 2004. Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny story is you were told by someone else, weren't you? Who was it? Who was it that told you?
The Microsoft AI team.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, in his time, he's held roles such as head of deep learning at Uber. He's had the role of head of data at one of the largest hedge funds and most successful hedge funds in the world. And unlike some other podcasts where we sort of have certain topics to talk about, I think this podcast would be so valuable to the listeners, just actually going through bit by bit his Luming's entire career and just learning about the sort of the journey that he's been on so far. And I think there's no better way to start than to kick things off with Microsoft Part 1, where Luming was first. He was previously working at Cognos. I didn't know Cognos as a company, but the reason for it is 3 years after you left, they were acquired by IBM, and they're now a huge part of their BI business. So Luming sort of began his career in business intelligence and really, you know, for the whole of his experience at Cognos and then through Microsoft, that was really 10 years of hardcore BI work. And we'll learn it throughout the podcast, but Luming really has sort of been at a different firm at certain periods of time where something huge has happened. And I think for Microsoft Part 1, we really saw actually it might have been Part 2. We'll come back to that later because I think it's Part 2 when we learn about the team that you built that ended up sort of triggering a lot of acquisitions in the market for business intelligence to make it what it is today. But yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about Microsoft Part 1 and you sort of coming in and becoming their sort of BI specialist at the time? When was it? It was year 2005, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about it. Microsoft 2005, you've come in. What does the world of BI look like 15 years ago?
Yeah. Before I get to it, I just want to give a high level, of my career. It's basically as the technology evolves, right? I pretty much follow it from the business intelligence into the big data and then into the machine learning, deep learning world. Yeah. So 2005, that's when the BI business intelligence started really gain tractions, and business do start seeing really real value from the data, right? So I joined Microsoft, built a very secret project at that time called Bitware, and later we released the product called Performance Point. And it, as you mentioned, it triggered a lot of consolidation in the BI world. Cognos get acquired by IBM, Business Object get acquired by SAP, right? So yeah, it's a very interesting time, and we really facing a lot of technical challenges, because when you start getting in data insight, you want to get more insight. In order to get more insight, you get more data, right? But the machine cannot process that many data. So there was the argument of scale up versus scale out, right? Scale up means that you're building more and more powerful machines, putting more memory into it, right? Putting more CPU into it. The scale out basically is, today it's called distributed computing, right? So basically you have more machines working together and try to solve the problem. Yeah, very, very interesting timing at that time. Yeah.
The Hadoop or Spark type approach, right? Scale out.
Yeah, that's just when the Hadoop was invented at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you initially joined Microsoft from Cognos, because it was a successful career there and they obviously gone on to be acquired by IBM, was it Performance Point that actually enticed you to moving, seeing this revolutionary sort of business intelligence that has been created? Was that like the key pulling point for you in order to join Microsoft?
Yes, that's right. So the first customer from Performance Point actually is Microsoft finance team, right? So they had a problem called the hell of Excel. So when Microsoft tried to release earning, right? The whole finance team basically using hundreds of thousands of Excel and try to put them together and get an accurate result. You can think how challenging that would be, right? So we basically solve that problem by putting a very nice, one system to solve that problem. Yeah.
Brilliant. And as you mentioned at the start, before we started speaking, this is now the evolution from business intelligence to big data and the shift where you move to Amazon. And Amazon in 2010 was very much a beast at the time, but looking at it now, it controls a lot of what people do. I know in the last year being in lockdown, I've had Amazon parcels arriving pretty much every day. And we're seeing Amazon stores being opened up globally now. It's a huge part of everyone's world now. And when you first joined, you were part of the contribution profit team, and it was about how you can use big data to solve Amazon's, I guess, returns problem to better calculate P&L among different things. So we don't think about this today, but for Amazon to be able to calculate P&L, like many firms need to do, for retail firms, it must be so hard because one day your P&L could be something, and then the next day, depending on how many people return a product, it could be a lot lower. And so you came in or tried to sort of solve that problem, right?
Yes. So contribution profit is such a powerful tool, and when I joined 2010, that I think is a secret weapon that Amazon can outcompete its competitors, right? Think about you as a business, a division leader, and if you can see your P&L in real time, you understand what product are making money, what product are losing money, and why they are losing money, right? That will basically have you focus on the most important business challenges, right? And of course, calculating that real time is very challenging because at that time we calculated everything based on the shipment, the lowest granular level. And for one shipment, we break down to more than 100 components, right? Revenue, shipping cost, the warehouse cost, right? And it goes very granular. And when you can go that level, and then when you aggregate up, you can slice and dice different dimensions, give you very, very powerful data insight. At that time, Amazon, on an average day has 5 million shipment, and on the holiday could be 20 or even 30 million shipment. A lot of data, and the historical data add up to 50 terabytes. I mean, today it's a small number, but at that time that's a huge amount of data, right? And my team was the first customer, or internal customer of AWS Elastic MapReduce. And there are a lot of challenges using that. And we also were the first team that testing the Spark within Amazon. Yeah.
Nice, because I know that is EMR, and for anyone that doesn't understand on the call, it really is industry leading, but it's a cloud big data platform for processing vast amounts of data, all using open source tools, so Apache Spark, Hive, HBase, everything else like that. And we know that today, and it's still in existence now. But the fact that 2010, 2011, you were the first, I guess, internal user of that is really quite interesting. It's so cool how you can reflect, and rather than say I used a very old technology back then and it's no longer in existence and you have no idea what it means now, you're using these things that are still taking part in day-to-day life now, 10 years on, which is so awesome. And the story about about Mr. Bezos himself and the news reported about an extremely heavy shipment.
Yeah. It's an interesting story. So I forgot the media. I think probably it's the New York Times. Basically has an article saying, hey, Amazon is selling this very heavy safe, right? And it offers free shipping, and the shipping costs thousands of dollars, right? And Jeff Bezos read that article. He said, "Oh, I want to understand what's going on." And then that task investigation come down to my team. So we look at the shipment history, and we said, "Oh, for the past 12 months, we only sold one." And actually, it's not free shipping. So there are always some mystery around stories around Amazon's sales. Yeah.
And so you helped Amazon out for a number of years. I think it was 4 years at the time, or 3.5. And then you made the move back to Microsoft. But by no means have you made the move back into a similar role, because as well as your role evolving, your exposure to the world of data has evolved as well, from BI to big data. And now we're making that shift into machine learning, right? And this
Yes.
is now 2014 for 2.5 years. And this was your first core experience in a role. Obviously, you were using it at Amazon, but this is where you could really put it into production. So, what was your experience like going back to Microsoft a second time after picking up the experience you did at Amazon and going
Yeah,
through
yeah,
that personal journey of data evolving?
yeah. The Microsoft experience was amazing because first the data amount, right? And I mentioned 50 terabytes data for the history of the contribution profit, but at Microsoft we are dealing with 1 petabyte of log data every day. Every day we got 1 petabyte of new data, and we also need to get to the we had to use a machine learning to deal with that huge amount of data, right? One interesting story was that my team actually developed a customer churn model for Office 365. And when we predict one large customer, we say, oh, this customer has a high chance of churning, and we called the account executive. Account executive just could not. They say, oh, a machine prediction, right? How could that be? This is a very very loyal customer. It cannot be. So we insisted. He then called the customer, say, hey, he was joking. He said, oh, our machine predict you guys may not want to renew. And the customer said, yes, we are just about to tell you that we are not going to renew. He was shocked. Yeah.
I'm a salesman at heart, and so an account executive I can probably relate to a lot. And if someone in technology or a technologist or a signal was to tell me one of your biggest clients is about to leave you, I'd say, I've known this client for years. I've got a great relationship with them. And little do you realize, but your algorithm and your machine learning tool on the back end has completely predicted the thought process of an entire client, and they did end up leaving, didn't they?
No, yeah, because we told them why not just the high chance of churning, but why they are churning, right? Because
Yeah,
we look at their activities and their engagement in some of the Office 365 product is unusually low. The reason is that they are not familiar with the product. They cannot get value out of it, right? So this is why Microsoft start offering free trainings to those customers, and they start getting value, and they definitely enjoy the product. Yeah.
for sure. So what you did was you built a signal machine learning that told this account exec that his client wasn't going to be renewing or carrying on. And in the longer term, it's helped Microsoft as a whole keep their client base for longer, because it's told them that the reason that person was going to leave was because they didn't have adequate training, which meant they didn't understand the product, which meant they wanted to go something that seemed easier to use. And so, one, by no means small, but one thing that was in your business area specifically has helped Microsoft increase revenues globally, just through a sort of completely different means without you realizing it. It's incredible to see the sort of the chain from what one part of machine learning can really affect for a business. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And you was trying to grow the market share for Bing at that time when you came in.
Yeah, I start with Bing, and then I also do the data mining for Office division. Yeah,
So you headed up data mining
Bing
for
and
them.
Office divisions. Yeah.
Awesome. And so now looking back, you've worked at two of the largest tech giants in the entire world. You've been there for 10 odd years, maybe even longer than that. I think maybe 11 years or so. And then sort of, I guess, a large scale startup, but a startup in Uber is sort of popped up, and you've ended up joining them. This is your first experience of a firm that isn't a sort of, in the best possible way, a sort of big brother, large, huge tech firm, right? How was that experience?
It's great. It was a very, very exciting experience. The reason I joined Uber was because Uber wanted to build a deep learning platform, right, to help them to be more productive, leveraging the latest in deep learning technology. I got into the a little bit taste of deep learning at Microsoft, and we try to predict the Surface 4 sales. And we use all kinds of technologies within it, and including the deep learning. But in the beginning, we failed many times because we find that no matter how we do, it just cannot beat the, a very simple method, which is the daily moving average. Very, very difficult to beat that simple method. But eventually, with great data, right? So we use all kinds of data, Facebook, Twitter feed, and we look at the search numbers on Bing, on Google, and we monitor the top 10 websites that have the tech comments on the devices, and we combine all those things together into a deep learning model, and it gave a very, very accurate predictions. And our prediction with the Surface 4 launch was amazingly accurate. So it's I can tell you it's a less than 5% of difference than the real sales number. So
So
we
it
were
makes
shocked.
sense why Uber brought you in, because Uber hired you as head of deep learning. But for anyone that doesn't know, I guess, so Luming's talking about his experience of deep learning at Microsoft. When Microsoft released Surface 1, there was a huge issue with overestimation of sales. And so I think they ended up losing about $1 billion in terms of excess inventory. Surface 2, they went the opposite way. And so they very much underestimated how much they could do. And I think they sold out, was it within a day, Luming?
Yeah,
In terms of,
yeah.
And so obviously missed out on a lot of profit there again. Surface 3 was better, but they gave Luming the sort of opportunity to build the figures and give them all the estimates, not using anything other than machine learning and more importantly, deep learning. And it was the most successful, what would you call it? Not an estimate, but sort of insights into the potential
Prediction.
profits.
Yeah,
Prediction,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And so Uber hired you directly into a role that was focused on deep learning. Is that right?
Yes,
So
yes,
you were
yeah.
head of deep learning.
Yeah, so we start with a very small team, 3 people, right? Myself plus 2 engineers, and we built the platform in 3 months, and then we onboarded many teams. They really love our solution because all those team data scientists, they can focus on their problem. They can focus on the algorithms, right? They don't need to worry about, oh, where is my server, right? Where is my model, right? All kinds of things they need to track down. And there are a lot of challenges in building that platform, right? Because we see a lot of very, very challenging problems. So one of the team, so they use they used to use a GPU server on their desk. The GPU server had 4 GPUs. They train a very large model. The training took 30 days to finish. Think about it. You start training and you have to wait a month and come back and see the result, right? So we put them on our platform and try to help them scale. And we use over 1,000 GPUs and train this model, and we reduce the time to 20 hours, right? So you start it, next day you see the result. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So you're adding your deep learning functionality into a machine learning platform.
Yeah.
3 months to build this platform, by the way. You sort of brushed over it right at the start there, but 3 of you building a platform in 3 months that has sort of made this much impact to the business. Is that a simple feat, or have you like?
It's not.
No, it's not, is it?
It's so excited, challenging, and I really feel the taste of the startup, the excitement, right? And the agile, and we really enjoy the work. Yeah.
Wow. Deep learning, it was when you joined Uber in 2016, I think you'll say it yourself, but at that time, that was sort of the emergence where deep learning was starting to prove that it can really generate above human performance. Have you seen it grow even now? Like from 2016 to now, the evolvement of it, it's been huge.
Definitely. Yeah, tooling side point, at that time, TensorFlow 1.0 was just released. We actually work side by side with the TensorFlow team, helping them to improve TensorFlow. And today, you see the TensorFlow 3.0 out, and it's amazing, right? And you see how the technology evolves and how easy people can get use those advanced technologies. Yeah.
Nice. And so, even though it was a startup, it was still 8,000 people, Uber,
Yeah,
at the
8,000
time.
people. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you sort of experienced a startup, but at the same time, it's still a sort of large tech firm. You've worked for 2 huge tech firms. And so we're keeping one of the axes the same in terms of the size of the business, but now we change industry and you go and join one of the largest and most successful hedge funds in the world. How much of a change was that for you? Because you came into Millennium as head of data, and that is a huge role for any hedge fund, but especially one the size of Millennium. So I guess the impact of data within the hedge fund industry, if anyone listens to last week's podcast with Chris, you'll understand how important data is now within the hedge fund industry. And really with algo trading, it really is the sort of sole contributor towards systematic trading. But did you know all this when you first joined, or was it really like you were sort of having to learn things all over again? I mean, how well versed were you with the financial industry?
Yeah, I actually didn't have a background of finance, right? And when I joined, I simply consider I really want to use technologies to solve business problems, right? And the data is critical for powering the machine learning, deep learning algorithms. So I look around, I said, okay, which industry has the data? Obviously, finance industry has data, and they really pay attention to the quality of the data, right? So this is why I choose to join a Millennium as a head of data. It's a very unique and interesting experience, and the biggest challenge actually is not technology, because technology problem I can solve, right? The biggest challenge for me was that try to explain our requirement to the compliance officer, right? And typically compliance officers, they are not technical, and we are involving with the some of the very, very challenging problems, and you have to explain that in non-technology terms to them so they can understand what you're doing and make a decision whether this is meet the compliance requirements, right? But on the other side, when you start thinking about it from non-tech terms, it actually help you to solve that problem. So it's a very, very interesting problem there. Yeah.
You got on well with the compliance team? I think you had to, didn't you? In order to be
Yes.
successful in this role, you had to be
Yeah,
very good
yeah. I
friends
have
with them.
to, be friends of them. Yes,
Definitely.
definitely. Mhm.
So what challenges do hedge funds have with data then? Is it the cleaning of it? Is it the storage of it? Is it, I guess for hedge funds, the reason they have data is because they want to find alpha within that data, right?
That's right. Yes. Cleaning data, normalization data, those are definitely very, very challenging problem, important. But more challenging is that for in the alternative data set world, right? Because hedge funds are using more and more alternative data set. The challenging is there are so many data set out there, right? How can you find those data set that really can generate alpha, right? Because looking deep into a data set actually takes a long time. It typically takes data scientists months to understand that data set. So what we did we quickly build a pipeline that we can quickly find out how valuable a data set is, so we can decide whether to move on or basically try to dive deep into that and generate alpha. Yeah.
Okay. So your job was making data as easy as possible to understand for the revenue generators, the PMs.
That's right. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And how big of a task was that when you first came in? Was it greenfield? Did they already have something in place, or did you have to literally implement something completely from scratch?
It's a not complete scratch. So at that time, we already had the KDB, right? We use KDB a lot. But the
Yeah.
problem is a lot of alternative data set, not time series data, right? Not really working well with the KDB. So we basically put a platform, and so we can process those data and join data with KDB data, and so we can run back testing very, very quickly.
Okay. So what I want to do is very quickly go back over what we've just spoken about. So you spent 10 years as an absolute BI expert and was in the huge bubble. You ended up joining Microsoft when they created a revolutionary product, which then led to various acquisitions, including your previous employer, to a large firm like IBM. You went to Amazon, helped them on the contribution profit team, and helped them generate more effective numbers for P&L. And went back to Microsoft, and that was we've shifted from BI to big data. We've then shifted to machine learning with Microsoft. You've helped them on the Bing projects, data mining. You helped with Surface 4 and the creation of the predictions for how much they'll sell. You've then gone to Uber when we've shifted into deep learning and become the head of deep learning for Uber, and you've now had your experience in the financial industry. The one thing that we're still seeking through everything you've spoken about is a true startup in terms of the culture, in terms of the environment, because you almost had it at Uber, but they really are probably the biggest startup you can imagine. So it now leads us to your current employer, which is ElectrifAi, which I find I love the name itself. I struggled to say it at first. I didn't know how heavily I had to pronounce the AI at the end of it. But you joined ElectrifAi as CTO, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And we spoke about ElectrifAi already in terms of them being the oldest machine learning company and things like that. But your role, and I'll let you add value here, but the role of the company is to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to solve business problems.
That's
so you're
right.
not a
Yes.
research company.
No, we are not a research company. We're not a platform company. We are not a tooling company. We do not sell toolings to help companies to build their machine learning solution. We sell machine learning solution. We do one thing only, which is build machine learning models, right? And this is so exciting because we got to solve the most challenging business problems for our customers. And we leverage our past 16 years of domain knowledge, right? Because in order to build a successful machine learning solution, you have to have the domain knowledge, right? That's critical, and we leverage that, and we also reuse that experience, right? So our value proposition actually three things. One is that time to value, and we build deliver solutions in weeks, not months, right? And also we lower the risk, right? The industry average failure rate for AI machine learning project is between 70% to 90%, right? Gartner says it's 82%, right? Some other says 88, right? But we actually failed a lot in the past, but we learned from that. So our past few years, our failure rate actually is less than 5%. So that reduced a lot of risk to our customers, and then lower the cost, right? Because when you deliver a better model at a shorter time, that the cost get lowered, right? You don't need to worry about to hire people, hire a team, and and build, buy the toolings, things like that. So it will be much easy, and high ROI for our customer to invest in those solutions. We, as you mentioned, right, we work actually very well with our customers' internal data science team. We help them to scale, we help them to accelerate, right? And they can leverage our domain experience, and also they could work with us, on some of the most challenging problems, right? For example, when I was at Amazon, my team actually worked with a pricing team to build this dynamic pricing engine that automatically priced the 20+ million SKUs at that time. Now I believe it's more than doubled probably. Yeah, and that actually helps, can not only help Amazon but help pretty much everybody who needs to do the dynamic pricing. And so it's a very interesting, because different customers actually has different business rules, how you take those business rules, take that market dynamic and put them into code and really solve problem. We have a lot of experience to doing that.
Yeah, there's so many good points you mentioned there, because through the years of working in this industry, and I've had arguments for proprietary technology or proprietary systems, proprietary this, proprietary that, people wanting to do it all in-house and selfishly thinking that's always the best way compared to looking externally. And you see some business models that are set up just to try and create something completely brand new that no one's ever done before. And you get other business models, and it was Peter Thiel that actually said it, that you don't create something revolutionary that people aren't doing. You just create a better way of doing it and a more easier way of doing it, as opposed to thinking that everything needs to change. And so what you're doing is you're creating insights that you can then give to the end clients. And going back to Millennium, the biggest issue with data is that when a hedge fund like Millennium gets data, they get given raw data. And it's like, we'll give you the lowest level of what we can give, which is the data itself, deal with it. And then they hire you to come and clean the data. They've got other people that have to sort of, research the data. You've got people that are, before they can go and actually execute the sort of research they pull from that. Whereas what you guys are doing, you're not just giving them a sort of a model, you're giving them the insights as well, and you're giving them everything that they need. The quote that I saw and that I know about you guys is don't build it, buy it. And it's a very, very interesting saying. People often think that you only use a company like an ElectrifAi if you don't already have a data science team. As an example, they think that it's just like a consultancy business. We offshore all of our data science to company X. Whereas the point you're saying is, well, yeah, we do that for some of our clients if they need to, but data scientists shouldn't see us as someone trying to steal their project. It's someone making their project 10 times more effective and helping them achieve their goals quicker, right?
That's right, yeah.
And the fact that you're larger, it's not necessarily down to economies of scale, but you're offering a higher success rate than your competitors, which in itself is probably the first thing that clients will look at when they're looking to partner with someone. But then to piece that with lower cost as well, it's almost like the best of both worlds. And by cost, just to be clear, we're not just talking about money cost here, because money is important, but risk and time cost is also as important as money, right? And you guys are solving all three of those cost issues.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah, and our models are battle tested, right? We have been working with the largest companies in the world for many years, right? And it's very complicated situations, and our model really stands the challenge and evolve from there, right? And also we have a very, very rigid engineering process that for every new model we build, we basically go through this so-called pressure test, right? We're not looking at the overall performance of the model. We go deep. We look at in which areas our model actually is weak, right? Performs the worst, and we want to improve those things. Make sure that even under the worst situation, our model still performs reasonably well, right?
And you never want a business to be reactive, so failing before they realize that they need help or they need to work with someone. So for a business listening now that doesn't realize that they may need to work with a firm like ElectrifAi, if they want to be proactive, what are some of the things that people should be looking at, and what are some of the problems that ElectrifAi can solve for clients?
Yeah, so we focus on a few industry, right? The finance, banking, insurance industry, and the healthcare industry, and retail industry. And the TMT, telecommunication industry, right? We have been in those industry many years. We know those industries very well. We know their challenges, and I think a common problem is that a lot of companies are not really confident in their data. They say, oh, we have very messy data. We need to clean it up before machine learning can work, right? Then we can talk with you. Actually, that's actually was a misunderstanding. Because what we do is that we only need to take the customer's raw data, right? And we have a so-called common data model. This is based on our past experience, success experience, and we tell customer what data we need to make this model work, right? All we need to do is take the customer's raw data map to our common data model, and then voila, everything works, right? This is why we can deliver it very quickly, and our integration actually is very simple because we are not built on any of the special technology. We can deploy our solutions anywhere, right? Anywhere. So our principle is we want to deploy our solution next to the data, right? Make it perform, reduce the data risk, privacy, and it can be any public cloud, private cloud, any on-premise. We can deploy on our customers' data center or even our data center. We can host it for them if they don't want to. They want white glove services, right? So yeah, the system integration is very simple, quick. Data integration, very quick, easy. So it put very less, a few burdens on their IT team, and we can see value very, very quickly. Yeah.
Brilliant. And has it evolved over time? Like, has the business model changed from 17 years ago to now? Obviously, you've only been a part of it for the last few years, but can you see it evolving again and having to change and adapt with the changing market?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so we started actually as a consulting company, but later we changed it to product company. Currently, our vision is we want to become the world machine learning model factory, right? So we basically just help doing machine learning models. So yeah, we do see the market is evolving. The demand is really skyrocketing. Yeah, it's a very, very exciting time right now.
The world's machine learning model factory.
Yes.
Amazing. I love it. Luming, honestly, we could have spent hours and hours talking about your career, and that we've only really scraped the surface of every single aspect of what you've done so far. And we had to skip over the earlier parts of your career as well that led you to working at some of the world's most incredible brands. But for everyone listening right now, and for myself, I just want to thank you for your time and sharing the knowledge with us. For everyone listening in right now, I'm going to share Luming's LinkedIn details on the post when we release his podcast, and his company details as well. And if anyone has any further questions, feel free to connect with him, follow his career, reach out to him as well. But yeah, Luming, thank you so much for spending time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you and ElectrifAi the very best for 2021.
Thank you very much. Very, very, very happy to be here. Yeah.
No worries. Enjoy the rainforest. It looks gorgeous behind you. See you later.
See you.